I love this area because it's the transitional zone. It's where the desert meets the forest. Friends come up from the city and stay overnight, and they're like, wow, I can see the stars. It's amazing. I mean, we're on the other side. We're not that far away. It's beautiful.
It's so peaceful, and the sounds that you hear are the wind and the trees. The wind is very much like the ocean. You know, when it comes, it's a powerful sound, and I love it. And it's a whole different way of living. You're not as much in a rat race, and friends are close at hand. So I like it a lot.
My inspiration comes from the hikes that I do around town, you know, right in the mountains. And when I'm on hikes, I really notice a lot of the details. You know, I notice like barnacles and parasites, and I just love the aesthetics of them. I love textures, I love colors. I've been hiking since I was a little girl. That was kind of my way of dealing with life. When things got a little tense around the house, I'd just take off. It was a way of calming my mind and focusing on something positive and hopeful. There's a way to bond with somebody as you're hiking in nature, and you really get to know somebody very quickly and very closely. I really feel deep connections here in Wrightwood, both with nature and the people here. Working with the earth, I find, is also very therapeutic. Here in the studio, I continue what I'm doing on the hikes by touching earth and appreciating it. So these are the beginnings of what you see here. I'll go all the way around. One thing different about this one, I think we'll have a little leaf kind of motif going on up here too. The interpretation's a loose interpretation. I'm not trying to make this look like a sea anemone. So I'm thinking maybe this one's going to spray upward. It can be a very intuitive process, you know, what fits together. It's best if I don't plan it out too much or think about it too much, because that's how I get more creative work, where you lose track of time. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not worried about the future. I'm just so hyper-focused. So a couple years ago, I started doing my art again, and I decided to schedule a show at the Wrightwood Arts Center. And so last November, I had my first art show in over 20 years. While doing the show, I knew I couldn't do it by myself. And I had students taking classes in here, and I just asked one day, would anybody like to volunteer to help me? And they all wanted to help me. And then when people would come to the show, they would ask a lot of questions, and we'd have these deep dialogues, because there's themes like climate change and wildfires, and really realize that art it's a community. Even though I'm here by myself, I'm not alone in this.
Hi, Jamie.
Good to see you. So the opening is next. Looked like your drawing together event went really well.
Something.
What are you going to have in the show on Saturday?
I did a little installation.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll get there. Yeah,
but that's going up on Friday, whether you
I
like it or
know,
not.
I know. That's what I'm going to do.
Hi, I'm Reyna. I'm a glass blower. I live in Wrightwood, California, and I've been making glass art for 10 years. I'm working on my representation of the three sisters. So that's the first one, and then I got a corn that I want to add on there, and a little pumpkin. And what they represent are the three sisters, corn, peas, and squash, that a lot of native peoples kind of they're sacred to them in a way. So I kind of go with a lot of bright colors, but my heritage is all over the place. There's several different indigenous tribes from my mom's and my dad's side. I do a lot of like plants plants, and I don't know, I kind of hold plants high up. I think it's just something that kind of brings me back to nature, and just, I don't know, I like to transplant my plants and pot them, and it's something that I've always liked to do. It makes me happy.
I love it. I love blowing glass. That's like the only thing that I can do and sit for hours upon hours and be like, oh my gosh, it's 2 in the morning. I should probably go to bed. Not because I want to, but because I know that if I don't go to bed, that I'm not going to be able to feel great the next day to do it again. So I'm just go into like a trance.
My name is Kazumi Svenson. Yeah, so I'm a glass blower and a frame worker and nail artist and wood carving. Is so lots of stuff going.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's now color is not the real color. It's done.
It's done. Wow.
My wife is from Japan, Kazumi. We do kokeshi, which is a traditional folk art from Japan. She does them in glass, and I've been doing them in neon, and we call our business here Kokeshi Glass, and that's what the neon sign says here. Kokeshi Glass. Yeah, I pretty much built my house and studio step by step over the years. The studio is maybe, 5 years old now. It really reminds me of a rainbow, but we love this space. I didn't really want to have reptiles in a cage as a pet, so I built our house as the cage that we live in, built into the hillside, so I can look out my window and see a variety of lizards that are indigenous to this area. Let's go in the studio. Great. We have a variety of different mediums that we work with. Yeah, my approach to neon is really related to glass blowing. I mean, even though neon is glass blowing, we're really interested in hot glass blowing and then bringing it to the neon shop and processing those blown forms. So it's more in the context of art than signage. Right. Yeah. Our son, Shion, is 12 years old now, and he's growing up around Kazumi and I making artwork. He might be destined to be an artist. These pieces here are works that Shion made. He painted when he was 4 years old. All right, come on upstairs, use the handrail. But we have examples here of different art pieces that Kazumi and I worked on these. They're kokeshi. They're, again, that traditional kokeshi doll, but taken in an abstract way to make it into a neon piece. It's sort of a unique method of working neon where I'll splice different colored fluorescent glass tubing together and in just straight horizontal lines, and it will actually create a painting on the background of the wood. When you stand back, you can see it more as a more defined form. Yeah, what I'm going to do is something that's kind of a fun gesture. So I'm going to heat this up and do what I call a twist. But I'm slowly heating this up on the ribbon fire. Okay, see, I'm starting to get a little fluidity happening. Okay, I'm gonna get it even as I can. Now I'm gonna suck in and blow out. There we go. Neon glass blowing is zen or as immediate as possible. You know, you're dancing, and whatever result you get is what you get, but it is a dance. Woo! Ooh, that's a cool one. Twist, 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 Daddy. My father was an artist, and I grew up just around art and
the work that he did and his friend. I kind of take after what my father's approach was in art and life was the same. He was one who would water rocks in the yard. His landscaping. He just saw everything being connected. I've sort of continued on with that. I love that approach to life, and I see life and art being one and the same.
Pretty close now. I've built up quite a wall thing. Pretty fun, you know, you put gas in there, it'll be real beautiful. Rarely do I have people watching.
Probably like most people, I felt really weird as a kid. I mean, I just really felt like I didn't fit any place, and I wasn't interested in the same things that my peers were. I didn't care about cars and other things. I just felt like whoever I am, I don't fit. And it wasn't until I discovered art. The visual arts were kind of a mystery to me until quite late. And once I discovered them and started drawing and making prints and things, I realized, okay, this is really interesting, but I still hadn't found my way until that one night in Wrightwood with a kitchen knife and these 3 little blocks of wood, and it was magic because I could make something happen. And I was raised here in a working class household in the Inland Empire. My dad was a steel worker, and so I grew up around tools, but I was always told, you're gonna go to college so you don't have to work with your hands. 2016, I had been approached to design a new production. The opera world was experiencing some difficulties, as is much of the classical music world. It was a co-production of the Lyric Opera of Chicago and the Portland Opera. The story of Faust is the classic story of a person who trades his soul to the devil to regain youth, okay? And lo and behold, the devil in the form of Mephistopheles shows up just like that, immediately, and says, what do you want? And Faust says, I want to be young again. And the devil says, I can do that, no problem. One of the things that I believe about my process is that I am a thinking artist. I spend a lot of time thinking and reading about art and studying art. But when I go into the studio, it's a completely different thing that happens. It's really intuitive, and I don't allow my intellectual self to intervene in that process. I get in the studio and I allow the work to speak to me and to take me where it wants to go rather than trying to steer it. Everything that you do with your life, every single thing changes who you are and therefore changes the work. And I think you have to be flexible when you go to the studio and not demand of the work what you thought you were going to be getting from it. You have to be open enough to allow the new you to be the creative person in the studio. Actually, I think you're more intellectually present as an intuitive being than you are as a thinking being, if that makes any sense. But essentially, I think I'm smarter if I'm not thinking. When I talk with people who are trying to make art, oftentimes they somehow think that the process of the way they spend their free time is separated from the act of being in the studio. I feel like my personal responsibility is to develop myself through the interests that I have, not through the interests that the culture would kind of give me. When I have students, I advise them to follow their personal interests without regard to whether those things would directly feed into their work. I've been working as a sculptor from about 1980 until almost the year 2000. And my work had gone really well. I had a really good gallery in Los Angeles. About every 3 or 4 years, I'd have an exhibition. The exhibitions always did well, sold well. I was never blocked. I never experienced this kind of creative block that my peers would talk about. In the year 2000, that all changed, and it changed really suddenly. I basically, over a period of maybe a month, stopped finding the creative energy to go forward. I found myself repeating what I was doing before, which I didn't want to do. I always wanted to be able to move forward. And that block, when I tried to address it, just got worse and worse. So the more I tried to get out of this enclosed space of being blocked in the studio, the more blocked I became. The more I struggled, the more tightly knit the box got around me. So over the next 5-year period, I tried everything I could possibly do to get out of that block. I tried a different intellectual approach to the way I spent my time reading and thinking about things. I tried different materials and methods. I tried kind of changing up my social life a bit, and none of it helped. So after 5 years of that, I decided I had to close my studio in LA and just be up here in Wrightwood. I had a small studio here at the time that I rarely used, but I decided that that's where I'd have to be. It became the case that the block just never improved. And so after 5 years, I told Laura, I said, I can't keep going out to the studio and not doing anything, not getting anything done that I respect or appreciate. What happened was, I went to bed at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I felt this kind of almost a physical push. And I awakened in a state between the dream world and the waking world. I saw and heard a story. There was a very complex narrative that came with this whole thing. Had lots of details, details all the way down to spoken text and costumes and all kinds of things. But the main thing about that was that all the characters were moving. They were all in motion. I'd been a static sculptor before that, and nothing moved. So starting the following day, I realized I was going to become an animator. I was going to have to create figures that could be moved in space. This kind of vision that I had on the night that I described when I awakened with this world that I could see, those characters were so specifically defined and their personalities were so clear to me that as I began to make them real in the real world, they became friends or something almost. They became so specific that I felt that I knew them in a way that I sometimes know human beings. Wrightwood is always kind of a respite from Los Angeles. Los Angeles is loud, it's busy. So when I was there, I was incredibly busy all the time. And when I would get home, it was this kind of quiet, peaceful environment. I think it helped to recharge tremendously to be able to come to this town. And when I got blocked and finally closed the studio and retreated to Wrightwood, and it was a kind of like a strategic retreat from town, I didn't know what would happen. But I think that the solace of being here, the ability to, be in nature, to have quiet time for reading and reflection, made a huge difference. And I think it did, in fact, set the stage for me to be able to break through and get back to work. I've never thought about crediting Wrightwood for that to some extent, but I think I should.
One, two, three, four.
See that? I knew that's where you would mess up.
No,
and extraordinary.
Oh, okay. Here we go. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm Gayle, like Cher, Gayle. And I've been in Wrightwood, well, this time 23 years. You can't stay away from Wrightwood, it calls you.
Born and raised in Compton, California, and my father was a baritone singer. he could hit a note that made the floorboards vibrate.
We need a hero to come and save the day. We need a hero to show us the way.
Coming from Compton, I escaped at an early age, and I went to areas like Idlewild, mountain communities, and I think there's something for an African American like myself. I really didn't fit into the African American community, so I assimilated into a lot of different communities, and I found the easiest community to assimilate into is a mountain community, because mountain folks are from somewhere else usually, and not looking for a drama, looking for a little more relaxation and enjoying nature, and that's just what I found has been good for me.
Yeah.
But that's a mountain community that I was looking for.
Show us the way. We need a hero to turn things around. We need a hero. If one can be found inside your heart, that's where you start.
The hero song was, and like most songs, they come from a place of real meaning and feeling, and we're looking at social media and what's happening with the country and the division, and we need a hero. We need somebody right now to kind of fix things.
One, two, three, four.
We need a hero to come and save the day. A hero to show us the way. We need a hero to turn things around. We need a hero. If one can be found inside of you.
Don't be afraid to masquerade as an ordinary person with extraordinary love for humankind.
Then I remembered that I had written something years ago. I written a line called "We Need a Hero." I just took it and dusted it off. There you go. Well, here's something that's incomplete. Let's finish this. Then I kind of channeled Gayle, where I thought, well, how would she approach this?
Inside your heart, that's where you start. Don't be afraid to masquerade as an ordinary person with extraordinary courage and love.
It's one of those songs that came together in 24 hours.
Those are the best kinds of songs. My best songs come together like that. You start getting inspired, and then it just flows. It just starts going.
That's it.
That's how it works. It just has such a good feeling here.
Yeah.
There's a spirit here in Wrightwood that is so positive and wonderful. And we know, because we commuted to come up here, and the minute you get off on the 138 and you're coming up the road, you just feel it. And it's like, yes.
I've been here 47 years. Obviously, I love it. And we lived down in San Bernardino, and I couldn't stand the smog. So my husband and I started looking up here in Wrightwood. I'm from New Jersey, so the seasons were something I loved. I liked that people knew your kids and you knew them. The friends that I've made here are lifelong friends, and you don't always find that in a big city area. I just love that we don't have street lights. One of the things that I love in nature are the lines, and you'll never really see a straight line in nature, or very rarely. So every one of my pieces has curves. So with this piece, it's a relief. I want the flower petal to look thinner and more like the natural flow of a calla lily. The process is I get a stone and then I cut away the big pieces with a diamond saw, and then I use chisels, hand chisels and drills, and to knock away the parts that I don't want. And I never know what the stone's going to look like. And I have an idea for a design, but you have to go with the flow of it. And almost everything I do, I leave a part of the natural surface of the stone. Because you never know what you're going to get. But the whole process of sculpting is you have to think, because it's a takeaway process, and you have to always remember not to take away more than you absolutely need to. So you do little layer at a time. This is another different shaped tool that I can scoop out with, and that I can use like in here. These are rasps. I have them all different shapes and sizes and texture. They're coarse on both sides, and then I can get into different angles with different ones. So then I can work with the curved angle of this piece, and then it just works with the rock and not against it. And without these deep cuts, you would never see what the intention was of the artist. Then once I get all of this stone relief cut deep enough, then what I will do is start polishing it. I use a tub of water and I put the stone in the water. I keep getting higher and higher with the grid sandpaper. That's what creates the high polish. As you can see, the stone itself has some color in it, and that will start to come to the surface. And that's the beauty of stone. I've been sculpting about 12 years now. Came into it late, but I love it. This is a map of downtown Wrightwood. So we have all the seasons. So the trees were here, and then the downtown came in between. And so we have a forest village here. But the downtown area is fairly colorful.
The Wrightwood Arts Wine Festival, and this is my functional line of ceramic art. For the festival, I just wanted it to be festive. I was working on this previously in its wet stage, which we call greenware, and then I fired it once and it became bisqueware, and then I added this glaze, and so I painted all these different colors on and I added all these details, and then fired it again, and this is the finished vase. My grandparents came here from Ireland, and so I started carving spirals, and then I became aware of this triple spiral. And this triple spiral you can see on megalithic rock art in Ireland at the Newgrange tomb, and in many places around the world we see this spiral symbol. So this holds your attention and your awareness in a certain way that brings you to a certain sense of peace.
We have a wonderful cross-section of people that have come from Southern California and all of the, and we have a wide variety from wood to ceramics to metal work, and we have a total of 34 artists, and we have probably a third of those are from local residents. Many of the artists that are here showing today have never been to Wrightwood before, and so they're enjoying their experience, they're enjoying the mountain air, and they're enjoying the artwork of other artists that they are not familiar with. Hope you enjoy your visit when you're here.
I like to use different texture and different variety for these pieces. I also like to do dried everlasting arrangements, and I'm just inspired by living in the mountains and being part of a community with artists that's just really lively and vibrant.
My name is Brian Sonia Wallace, and I am Rent Poet. I do custom poems on the spot for people based on what they tell me. So I always just say, what do you need a poem about? And that can be a single word, it can be a whole story. People will get them as gifts for people. The whole process takes about 5 minutes of chatting, 5 minutes of writing, and they come away with a one-of-a-kind piece of art.
Because I find when you slow down, life gets a lot fuller.
Yeah.
When you're fast, it just goes by so fast.
I love that. Hummingbird House. Floating wood shelves with wings that move so fast you can't even see them. Each day, I awake and the light splinters into 1,000 colors.
Beautiful. Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
This came from an oak tree in Paso Robles. A burl was on a branch, and this is the branch it was on. It kind of went, like the branch came out here. So I cut part of it off and then turned it and tried to leave this on there and get both pieces on the same, both shapes on the same piece.
So art is my other passion. It's a little more difficult for me than music. Music is more of a release, more joyful. And when you paint, it's very intense. But that's just a different kind of creativity. So always kind of bright and colorful because I like color. And these are poppies. You can't just keep doing the same old thing over and over. You've got to try and create some different things, some different ideas.
Zuvan is so good here. I love it. It popped up in my Facebook feed, so we thought we'd come and check out the wine.